If you don't wake up in the morning and you don't feel lucky and you don't feel grateful, you're doing something wrong with your life.
Yeah.
If we were going to scale and build a business that was multiple locations, we knew that we needed some internal training of our own in order to onboard people to be the best at what they do. Whatever that role or responsibility was had to be defined. And what I realized for a long time is that I failed to be a leader by not giving them the proper skill sets to be a rock star in what they do. And so when I hooked up with Brad, which was a funny story, I went to a boot camp with Grant Cardone. It was right before COVID. And I spent $10,000 a ticket investing in myself to go to this boot camp to learn information about how to scale. And I wanted VIP tickets. I said, I'm going to be in the front row, like 10 feet away from Grant. I made it happen. And my wife was there with me. And we had private luncheons every day, right? And so Grant would do Q&As with like 60 of us. And it was really personable. And I remember the day I got the opportunity to ask Grant this question I had in my gut. And I read all of his books. I studied the guy and I was like, wow, this guy was like a drug addict, didn't do anything with his life until his 30s. And how the frick did he scale this multi-billion-dollar business? So in his book, he talks about how he struggled for 10 years in the $3 to $4 million range. And he wanted to get to the 10 million in revenue with his company, Cardone, which was training other small businesses how to scale. And they were using Lightspeed, which is what Brad developed. And I didn't know that at the time because I was a customer on his platform. But I built a relationship with Grant and Michael Bonnet and Sherry and Jared and all these people at the company. And I got proximity. This is when everything started coming apart, but there was a blessing behind it. So I'm sitting at the seat. I got the Kiwis next to me, Matt and Blair from Australia. They just completed $1.2 billion in sales last year in Auckland, New Zealand. And they're 31 and 32 years old. I met them at this mastermind at Grant. We're still great friends of the day. In fact, we're doing future business next year in real estate development. Anyway, so I got my opportunity and I wanted to ask Grant one question and I got my chance. So I got up on the mic and he's like, so who are you? What do you do? And I told him what I do. He said, what's your question? And I said, you struggled in the $3 to $4 million range for 10 years. How the frick did you go from 3 or 4 million to 100 million plus in revenue and build a team of more than 140 employees? Who'd you have to become to do that? And it aggravated him, it annoyed him. He got mad. He didn't like the question. And he looked at me and said, you know what? Here's my advice. Your business is not scalable. Sell it. And they turned my mic off in front of 60 people. Super rude. And the Kiwis that were next to me were like, looked up to Grant like a guy because they're in the real estate. And they were like, wow, that's just really disappointing. And so long story short, Elena, his wife, walked up to me and my wife and said, I just want to apologize for my husband's behavior. That was inappropriate. I don't know what he's having a bad day. There's a lot of people pressuring him. And she's like, I'm so sorry. And then next thing you know, I get this guy by the name of Frank Kern. And everybody knows Frank Kern. And I didn't know him at that moment. He's the OG outside of Dan Kennedy in marketing, direct response marketing. And Kern says, you got 45 minutes? I want to sit down and talk to you. And then Frank Kern pulled me aside and said, he's a jackass. And I want to know more about what you do because I think you got something, but I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty good at judging people. And so we sat down and he said to me, you are going to work with me in everything you do in direct marketing, and I'm going to make you an expert. And I said, I'm down. And he goes, cool. So I'm going to have Wayne Helena. He's my partner on Grant's company. He's number 4 in the company. We're going to do a Zoom call with you in about 2 weeks. And we're going to sit down and talk about how we're going to take over your direct marketing. But most importantly, we're going to teach you how to be an expert in marketing. I said, all right, cool. So I got a call 2 weeks later from Frank. And Frank's like, look, I'm leaving Grant. It's been great. I'm out. And I'm going to hand you over to Wayne. And I was like, wow, okay. So Wayne Helena was with Grant when Grant was small and became big. And I was already building a relationship with Marketing Glossit with Wayne. And so Wayne said, I'm going to resign. I'm going to fly to Vegas in 2 weeks. And I want to come work with you and scale the business. So I hired Wayne.
Wow.
And he worked for me. He died about 1.5 years ago. He went on vacation to Colombia, and he had sleep apnea, and they found him in his Airbnb. He had died. He had suffocated. He was a big Dominican guy, very smart, worked with Grant, worked with Jarrett, worked with Frank Kern. Anyway, so I hired him. And then during that period, My CMO today is Jesse Wilcox. He was the media buyer for Grant Cardone. He quit when Wayne quit, and they both came to work for me. And so today, Jesse's still with me, and he's a marketing monster. And so him and I are the ones that do all the direct response ads for the products, the training, the studio. We're a team. And so basically, what was the blessing in that situation with Grant?
It opened the door.
It opened the door, because if I'd never attended that event, it wasn't the content that I had at the event. What was it? It was the relationships I built at that event, not the content that they were teaching me. That was the value, right? And since then, I've told you guys a lot of stories in this podcast about investing in myself, investing in my business. But let me tell you something. The game changer for me was, how do I get proximity? Well, how do I get Brad Lee was Michael Bonnet, which was the sales guy when I worked at Grant's office, another parlay, put me in contact with Brad, and Brad wanted to meet me. So we went to the cigar lounge, which I belong to, a private lounge in Vegas called Enfuegos. And Brad asked me to come out to his office. And so Wayne and I went out to the office at the time, Helena, who worked for Grant, and my videographer, Austin. And we sat down with Brad and spent like 4 hours hanging out with him. And me and Brad really connected. And he goes, hey, I got this black Raptor, and I took it through the brush, and it's all freaking scratched. And he goes, I'm going to be leaving town for a keynote, and I'm going to leave it at the valet. Why don't you go pick it up and do your magic? Let me see what you do. And so I went to the airport. I picked up the Raptor, brought it back to the shop, shot some before and after, made content with it, and then shot him pictures back. And then he got back into town. It was at the valet at the airport waiting for him. He sent me a voicemail and says, dude, did you paint my truck? Like, what the frick? Like, there's no way you fixed all this in like 2 or 3 days. And he goes, where are you at? And so basically I told him I was in Fuegos. He came by, he put me on a live. He did shout outs for me. And he says, how much do I owe you? I said, nothing. He goes, come on, man. I got to pay you. I says, no, I'm building a relationship. He says, my man, smart move.
That's the strongest currency.
It's the strongest currency. So that's how our relationship started, me and Brad. And he's introduced me to other people in the circle. But again, it goes back to, if you don't add value to what you can do inside that relationship, so why should these people want to be close to you?
Well, yeah. And to get into those circles, those people are very intentional about who they put around them. And if they're just around people that are taking, you're probably not going to be in that circle very long. You have to give more than you receive. And then that opens up this abundance, this exponential pathway of opportunity. Look where you are now from a simple interaction, and then a simple leverage of relationship, building relationship, collecting that human capital. It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy, because this opens up other doors for other opportunities. You just don't know what those opportunities are.
Yeah.
And so every relationship can connect to somebody that has a resource that you currently don't have. But if you're not shaking hands with enough people,
right,
you're not making money, because the more hands you shake, the more money you make, right?
Yeah, some more problems you can solve.
Yeah, and the more problems. And that's the big thing, is like, the bigger the problem that you can solve, the more it's worth.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I was going to search for different things in the marketing space, I needed to get around the people that knew more than I knew.
Yeah.
Right. And just listen and listen and listen, and then apply. Right. But I think a lot of people want shortcuts, and that's just, I don't know. I get frustrated sometimes just watching social media, because I know so many people out there are being conned and lied to.
Yeah.
And it's really heartbreaking for me, because there should be more people on social media that can help people find their journey, find their path.
That's a big part of this show. It's like, I'll have episodes where I come on and I'm just like, here's what I effed up this week. Here's my failure. Here's what I learned. Here's how I blew my marketing budget. Here's how I came up short. Here's a loss I had to take and eat in the business. And the reason that I do that is because I want people to see that journey and know, like, we're just documenting the fail forward. Just keep going.
I think there is no finish line. I think that's one of the things we have to realize. The low gear, there is no finish line. When we did the exercise, going back to Garrett, and we did the sand cookie exercise at 4 o'clock in the morning, it is a real Navy SEAL exercise where you go through obstacle courses in the water on the beach, and it's pretty intense. And there was 10 of us. It went on for like 4 hours. Everybody else was done in 2. Who do you think the last one was running on the beach?
Who's that?
Me. They didn't want to tell me a finish line, and they just kept going around, and everybody's sitting on the bus looking out the windows, and there's light going around. And I'm thinking, I'm getting pissed because I'm like, when is this shit going to end? But here's the story. Here's the parable. There is no finish line, folks.
Yeah.
There's just the next evolution.
Right.
And that's why everything in gloss, it's called EVO, because everything's constantly changing. Nothing's ever the same. And everything that you think that you reach the finish line is no finish line. There's just another step.
Yeah. So I want to talk about your sales process just really quickly. You were telling me. So
you got to watch me close a customer.
Yeah.
Right. Did you listen on that? So there were two, it was a couple, it was a return customer who got married, and we had worked on our car a couple of years ago. So we already had a relationship. We already had trust. They knew they wanted to come back, and they bought 2 new cars. And the sales process is something that I teach, like, because if you don't know how to build a relationship or a conversation and you're trying to sell a product or service to some people, why should they trust you? Right? They're not going to.
Yeah.
And number 2, people don't buy from people they don't like.
Yeah.
And you said that I was joking and this, that, and the other. Well, that's like camaraderie, right?
Yeah.
When boys hang out, what do? We roast each other, don't we? Jabbing each other and going and making fun. Why do we do that? Because it's a relationship. It's fun. And so my thing is that when you're trying to sell something to somebody and you can't make them laugh, they're not going to drop their guard. They're not going to trust you. And so humor for me is a big deal in the sales process. Find something you have in common with the person that's genuine. I'm not talking about bullshit. I'm talking about finding something that's really a real connection with that person and build a relationship. And even if you don't get the money you want, it's an investment in a future business and a long term. People always ask me, how long has your average customer been with you? 15 years. Average. Ernie is 30.
He was telling me about your process and things that he likes about your process. Just the attention to detail, how every step of the process has a digital fingerprint from an employee so you can track exactly where it is. Mm-hmm. One of the benefits he was telling me is like while it's in progress, he gets update pictures in a text message from your employees. So, how many customers are waiting around thinking, where the hell is my vehicle? Like, what's the update?
Well, that's a good point. So one of the things I identified is like, here's a good parable. If I want to go to Outback and I want a nice bone or ribeye, I can buy that steak for $45, $50. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Or I could go to STK or Delmonico's and spend $150 on that steak. Are they both steak?
Yeah.
Why am I paying the difference? Well, it's really simple. I want the experience of eating that steak to pay the $150.
Yeah.
Right? It's the environment. It's the service. It's the attitude. It's the vibe. That all contributes to, if more people would invest in giving an experience to what they're selling, there's unlimited amount of value in that. And the customer will love that experience, like going to a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
You can go and stay in Motel 6 where the light's always on, right?
That's right.
For $35 where the cockroaches are guaranteed and dirty sheets, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Or I can go to a 5-star hotel where I've got a butler on the floor. I got a concierge asking me, is there something else I can do for you? Yeah. And how can I make your experience better? I will pay 10 times more money for that than I would for the cockroaches.
Yep.
Right? Because the cockroaches is what? It's just a bed with sheets and all I'm doing is sleeping, right?
Yeah.
So I think that when you talked about the digital footprint, right? Customers are blown away. If you go on, you probably read some of my reviews, right?
Yeah.
Not everything's positive. There's some people you can't make happy. There's some people that will build a story of what they think they should do for what you charge them. But the majority of people, what we try to do is make them feel like when they walk out of here, they feel like VIP.
Are you asking for these reviews in your process?
So that's a good question. So what I do is I tell them that this is part of my sales process. If I'm able to do it for X price, pick a number, it doesn't matter, and you're happy, and I'm able to meet this number, and you love the work I do, would you be willing to post a review if I could do it for this number?
So you set the expectation in that process. Actually, this is let's back up. Let's start at the ads. Let's start at like Facebook ads.
So we call it a hook. So there's, in great marketing, and I learned this with Kern. And Kern said it's really simple. Every great ad has 3 components to it. It has the hook, the story, the offer. And if one of those three is missing, it won't convert.
Hook, story, offer.
You got it. So your messaging inside your offer has to have these three components. So if you don't grab somebody's attention in the first 2 seconds, they scroll, right? So one of our offers that we do is 50% off select ceramic coatings. And you're like, I want the 50% off deal.
Yeah.
Right? But what's the key word in that? Select. So what are the select coatings? And then from there, it goes into a landing page, which is a website that goes into a jot form where you put your basic information in. And then that jot form goes into a CRM, which is a platform that will host all of your leads. Then you build all your buckets out from your new leads to your old leads, to your estimates, to your sold deals. And so those are our analytics, how you keep track of all the leads. But what happens is the lead comes in to a text. Then there's an automation where I send a voicemail out to your phone without it ringing to introduce who I am in the company. And we love to have the opportunity to sit down and go through some options to protect your vehicle. Go ahead. We look forward to seeing you here at Glossit. Then it goes into a text message that we time 2 minutes out. And then a live person will engage on that to ask you a few basic questions to get you in for an estimate. So that's the lead generation process.
And you're saying that there's somebody that you have actual staff, physical staff at all hours of the night.
Up to a certain point.
Yeah.
So normally like between 9 and 10 at night.
So
somebody will be on from like 6 to 10. And then we're here during the day. So from like 8 to 6, we're here with team. Yeah. And then somebody's responding at 5 a.m. until we get here at 8. So I always have somebody 7 days a week on the chat. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Right. You know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you done like automated responses like AI bot?
So we're testing in January some new AI, and we're going to learn a lot because I'm not an expert. I don't know enough about it, but we're going to start using that inside. It's called a Go High Level, which is a CRM. There's Salesforce, which you pay a huge license fee for. But Go High Level will do everything.
And then you could white label Go High Level too and apply it to your own.
We're already working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what will happen is we build out, like, say, Glossit of Miami, Glossit of Nashville, Glossit of Atlanta, right? It's going to be the same systems and processes and onboarding as Vegas will be everything. So what happens is if you go in and say you have a wrap shop and you're like, dude, I do like $500,000 a year and I just can't get past it. Well, there's usually a few things where you're not doing it. Most of the time, the guys can get to 500,000 by hustle. They're doing no direct response marketing. They're doing no lead generation. They're running no ads on Facebook. So we look, if you wanted to figure this out on your own, we created glossituniversity.com. You can go on Lightspeed, which is where all of our videos are hosted. And we can teach you step by step on how to create your own Facebook ad. Take your iPhone in 10 minutes, post an ad. Here's the framework. Here's the offer. Here's a call to action. Go for it.
So you send out these automations, the client texts back. You were mentioning the crucial part of this pipeline is getting them to come in for a quote, for an estimate.
Right. Because here's the thing. Everything's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we average 125 leads per week. We look at our cost per click, which is what did it cost for that actual acquisition. So because how the algorithms work on social media, the more people like your ad, the more they trust your ad, the lower your cost per acquisition is.
Right.
So when we first started, we were $150 a lead. Today, we're at $28 to $35.
That's awesome.
But it took a period of time to build a relationship for people to trust our ads.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen overnight, right? So let's say 124 come through. A lot of people come in, their cars don't even qualify to be worked on because they need body work or the paint's peeling. So you got to ask the right questions. And that's what we teach here at the Glossy University. If I use a system like that, can you guys walk me through the process on how to qualify people when they come into the text messaging and what does that look like?
Okay.
And then we create templates so you don't have to type because they're going to be the same 20 or 30 questions that people ask.
Yeah.
And then what we do is on videos, we teach you how to overcome the objections through text without picking up the phone. And then if it doesn't work by phone, we teach you a phone script on how to get them on the phone to get them in the door. So there's a whole process that we built the framework around to do this. And I want you to understand something. What I'm teaching works with any business.
Yeah.
Any business.
That's like the parable we said earlier. Once you find the way, you can see it in all things.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what this has turned into is me now owning a media company outside of Glossit, and now me going in January to meet with one of the largest resorts in the world and they want me to do their sales training and lead generation.
Yeah.
And they're an $8 billion a year company owned by 4 brothers, and the father started it in 1975. So now they're so impressed with me because I became a client and a resident of this community worldwide. They've been watching my social media and studying me.
Yeah.
And now they want me to fly down. They're actually going to fly me on their Gulf Stream in January to go and have a meeting with the owners and the father.
No big deal.
Yeah. And they want me to take over possibly and do all the lead generation, which would turn into a multi-million-dollar contract with them.
All from a single dude with a detail shop.
Guy that washes cars.
Yeah. And this is what I'm saying is like, you just cannot predict. You cannot foresee the opportunity, the compounding exponential opportunity that comes from just starting and the discipline of staying consistent in that.
So here's one thing I want to give a piece of advice. And I just thought about this. Anybody that's starting off a new business, I don't care if it's automotive, it's not automotive, it's a product, it's a service. And I think Ernie would agree with me on this. You got to eat shit for 3 or 4 years. What I mean by that is 40% of your, not your gross profit, your net profit has to go back into the business to grow it. More employees, more advertising, more equipment, bigger space. Because if you don't have the working capital, you're not going to scale.
Yeah.
And what I notice is that people will, and Ernie might agree with me, that they live their lifestyle on their business. And this is why it never grows. Because they're not reinvesting back into the business to scale it. So every time I get a new guy, like I give you a story, Bam, his name in Atlanta. He's a Filipino kid. He's funny, has a great personality. He saw me on social media. He went to my boot camp a year ago Christmas. I had 10 students in the class, and I thought he was the most likely not to succeed, right? I was wrong. But the point is that Bam came here, borrowed money from friends, was living out of his car. I didn't know this. To attend my boot camp. He didn't have any money. It was $5,000, right? Today, fast forward, he has 6 employees, a shop that he paid cash for and built in a year, and broke $1 million in revenue and was living in his car a year ago. You can find him on social media. Bam Auto Detailing, Atlanta, Georgia.
That's crazy. So you get clients in here for the estimate. The ones that you filter out, you get them in here for the estimate. And then this is the closing room, the deal room. What happens like once you get them in the door?
So I think it's about walking. I call it it's basically showing them environment, being as transparent as possible. Look, what we do is pull your car into the shop where everybody's working. It's like a car dealership. If they were to change their game a little bit and let you pull into the shop where all the mechanics were working, what do you think your confidence would be about having them work on your car?
High.
Versus sitting with some sales advisor in an office and you can't see what's going on or believe it's even real or true. Yeah. So what I do is I pull people's car into the shop where everybody's working. So that way they got eye candy all around them. Show them how clean your environment is. Eat off the floor, right? Everybody's working and on top of their game. I introduce all my employees to every person that comes in here. Hey, this is Josh. He's the shop foreman. This is Max. He's the PPF and vinyl wrap manager. This is Junior. He's one of our paint correction details. Say hi to Junior. And hey, this is Marcus. He runs the shipping department. What am I doing?
Building rapport.
You're building a relationship with my team and the customer. And so what happens is I give them ideas. So let's say you come in and you're like, I just want a coating on my car, right? Great. Hey, let me show you the PPF job I'm doing over here. And oh, by the way, this customer over here wanted me to powder coat his wheels black and paint his calipers because he thought it would look nice. What am I doing?
You're sprinkling it on top, cherries.
I'm painting a picture.
Yeah.
Possibilities of what I can do to your car. And that opens up another conversation because you originally came through and all you wanted was what?
Just that clear coat.
You just wanted a coating, right?
Yeah.
And you walked out the door getting a coating, PPF, ceramic window tint, powder coating wheels, and calipers. And my name's Ernie Becker.
Which was leveraged on relationship.
Right. But with Ernie has an expectation. That's another important thing, right? You have to learn the customer's expectations. Listen to what they have to say. They know what they want. You can give them an idea or direction, but if you don't execute the one reason why they came to you, they're never coming back.
Yeah.
And I don't care how good of a job you did on the rest of the car. If you miss that one thing, guess what happens? They're gone.
They're gone. Yeah. And what's cool about these additional products that you're tacking on, what's cool about your sales model is now let's go all the way back to the beginning to the product line that you developed. Okay. Yeah. And what I
started with one product called
Gloss Enhancer.
So you've used a million times. Yeah. It's milky white. It smells like Hawaiian Tropic.
Yeah. In fact, I put it on one of my first trucks I ever had back years ago. He gave me a bottle of it years ago, before I could have even imagined sitting here doing this podcast with you. But what's cool is, and to bring it back to the beginning of this episode with your products is, now you got them on this product line. And the product line is like a subscription because you need to reapply every so often. There's like timelines on this product application, right?
Well, not necessarily. Think of it like brushing your teeth, right?
Yeah.
You go get your porcelain teeth. You got the nice veneers. Does that mean you don't brush your teeth anymore?
No.
There's aftercare, isn't there?
Yeah.
So gloss enhancer or the detail spray is aftercare. That's just so you can maintain. The coating is a long-term protection.
But aren't there timelines on that coating? Like you got to come back in.
It depends. So yeah, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference? I said, think of it like this. There's resin. What is resin? Resin is glass. There's viscosity, which means gauge or thickness.
Yeah.
So the more gauge per layer and the more layers, the more what?
Time.
Durability.
Yeah.
That's how we can go from like a 1 year to a 2 to a 5 to a 10. So the coating is the foundation. The detail spray is the maintenance.
Yeah. And this is what I love. It's like you're incorporating a long-term drip of income from product, and you own the product. It's not like you're selling somebody else's product. You own it, all of it.
Yeah.
And now it's everything from the lead gen. You're selling your systems from lead gen to your product lines to your closing techniques. It's very well articulated. It's strategized. It's well thought out, and you have no holes in your bucket. You're capturing all the leaky water.
It's just like, think of it like this. If I'm sifting gold and I'm up in Alaska, I want to catch as much gold as possible. I don't want to lose any gold.
That's right.
So I look at every last ounce, and that's what I try to capture. How many times can I milk that system? How many times can I monetize or be super efficient with my systems to get the most return? And a lot of people would say, oh, that's good enough. Well, I can live with that. And that, to me, it's like, what is good enough? Good enough is what you accept.
Yeah.
And what you take.
Do you want great or do you want good?
Exactly. And so the difference between good, better, and best is what? If I gave you good, you would think that's great. But until I give you better, you have nothing to judge by. There's no scale.
Yeah.
And so if we don't increase our standards, we can't increase what? Expectations.
Right.
And so what I always like to do is under promise and over deliver. I like the wow factor.
Yeah.
And that's why I came up with the Weekly Buff YouTube channel. Is if you notice that I introduced the customer in the beginning of the video, when you guys went outside, I was with a John Gotti character with the Cadillac with the chrome trim he wanted me to put on his car. But the point is that I build these relationships and you see the emotion inside the video. It's genuine and there's no skit. It's not counting cars, right? It's not scripted. It's real, right? And so those relationships, people see that on video and they're like, hey, that's pretty cool. I want to meet this guy. I want to go down and check his shop out. I want him to work on my car.
Yeah.
It makes it personal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's what we've lost touch inside business today. I think that personal touch, like when I was in Cancun and I was in this resort and I was with my wife, you know what I noticed is that people down there were grateful. I think that's another thing we don't do when we wake up in the morning. Am I lucky? If you don't wake up in the morning and you don't feel lucky and you don't feel grateful, you're doing something wrong with your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't have something and you don't feel like you have enough, focus on what's good. Don't focus on what's bad.
Yeah.
Start focusing on more of what you're grateful for and more good things will come.
Yeah. I would be interested. You had this foresight way back when you started building a vertical income to take that income and put it into passive income producing properties, primarily in real estate, correct?
Correct.
So have you continued to buy real estate throughout your journey?
This is a new product, and Ernie and I were talking about condominiums, right? It's about buying the dirt and getting the numbers to work. Well, I didn't buy this dirt. I buy a pre-existing project, right?
Yeah.
It's on Rainbow and 215 Dream Garages. And I think that with commercial real estate or flex space, I think that if you can find the dirt, which is going to be tough right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the play, right? Triple net leases, right? Because you're not having to fix toilets or replace AC units. I think that's another good commercial space. I think you guys, that's some of the stuff that you guys currently do. This is more of the things I want to invest in. I would like to find more dirt and build bigger projects. You might have to go to Pahrump, like Ernie were saying, because again, that's a long-term play, right? You go out there, you buy the dirt, and then you sit on the dirt, and then you start doing the planning for what you're going to do, right, in 5 years from now. But everything's going to move that far because Las Vegas greater area is running out of dirt, right?
It is, yeah.
And so they're going to have to go out to outside communities like Indian Springs, Pahrump, Boulder City, or into Arizona, like Bullhead City.
What does your portfolio look like right now in the real estate space?
It's mostly like multifamilies. Like I have partners.
Yeah.
So basically I put money in.
Like large syndications.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the Kiwis I talked about.
Yeah.
We have a goal. We'll start in January. Either they're going to fly here, I'm going to fly there. But we want to set up another corporation, like it's called Williams Corporation, where they do single family dwellings. Over there, there's no options. They just sell everything done. Yeah. But we're talking about how do we acquire and what markets can we go to? That's what Grant does, right? Except we're not going to buy $300 million projects.
Right.
We're going to start off with 100 units, 150 units, which your family does now. I think you guys have 400 units that you acquired not too long ago down in Green Valley. And I think that's a play. I think it's about finding something that you can put improvements into. You can then raise the rents over a period of time and then pull the cash out and then leverage that cash and then go buy more properties.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just about cash flow, which is nice. It's about the long-term play.
Where are you finding these operators to do these projects?
So everything I told you in this podcast are relationships I met inside these masterminds.
Yeah.
Because all these guys have different verticals, right? And so when they start investing, like you told me about the group that you belong to, which I'd be interested in attending and maybe becoming part of and contributing with the group, is that when you build inside those relationships, something might not happen tomorrow, but a year from now, you might come 100%. Across an opportunity where the guy's like, hey, I just come across this, something I'm looking at. I'm looking for a couple other guys to come in the deal. Are you interested?
Happens all the time. Every week I get a couple deals across my desk.
But if you didn't attend that mastermind, would that have ever happened?
No, never.
So what do people really need to do? They need to go attend. And they're going to say, well, I don't have any money or I can't invest anything. But here's my question for you. What value can you bring to that meeting with those people that you can go out and hunt deals for them? You become a wholesaler.
You totally could. Yeah.
Right? And you could do all the due diligence. And if you find the deal and you put the agreement, you get paid for that.
Yeah.
Then you take that money you made from that deal and then you start investing with the big boys.
Right.
But you got to start off simple, small first, and then start scaling.
Yeah. I'll tell you a lot of the relationships I've leveraged, the level that we're talking about with some of these guys, they're on their way to becoming billionaires. So there's a level that they're operating at that I'm not yet operating at.
But ask yourself this question.
Yeah.
How long they've been doing it consistently?
A long time. A long time.
And ask them where they started.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But something I've been able to leverage is when I first got in this room, I felt like I had nothing to contribute. What am I going to give these guys, right? Yeah. And what's crazy is if you think you have nothing to contribute, you're absolutely wrong because you have a lived experience that maybe these individuals don't have, whether that's the way that you parent your kids, the way that you show up as a husband to your wife, whatever it is, right? A lot of these guys are unbalanced and they need balance in something that they don't have and maybe you do. And so I would encourage you, don't not go because you don't think you have anything to contribute. Oddly enough, when I started hustling, I had to really learn this technology, podcasting, social media, how to set up cameras. I had no knowledge of that. But what I did is I sat and I watched hundreds of hours of YouTube and self-education. And what's crazy is like, I think of myself as the Neanderthal that like bangs on my keyboard, can't even type. But recently, these guys in this mastermind are calling me. And you know why they're calling me? They want help. They want help setting up the cameras and the social media. How do I make my social media look like yours? And you know what? I'm sitting with them for free, for nothing else other than forging relationships because I can give something to them that they can take that's tangible. I give them action steps. I help them set it up and off they go. And it's helping grow their business. And I expect nothing in return. But just like you were saying, I'm leveraging that human capital. I'm just depositing into a bank because you have no idea what opportunity is going to come one day. And that relationship is.
So I always tell people when you start off doing something new, suck less, do more.
That's right.
Suck less. And remember, it's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Keep track of your wins, right? Every day, look at your wins and losses. What did you learn today? What can you do differently tomorrow? And don't procrastinate. When you say, I can do that tomorrow, that means you need to do it now.
Yeah. You're a very successful entrepreneur. You have an 8-figure business here. You clearly don't need the passive income to continue in real estate, for example. And I'm sure that you're probably not living off of it. You're reinvesting it is what my guess would be.
Well, I think it goes back to that everybody, remember we talked about paradise? Yeah. Everybody's paradise are a means of like what they're comfortable with. And what I realized, and I've listened to Ryan Pineda a couple episodes recently, and he's right, is that when you reach a certain level of monetary wealth, it doesn't change after that. Like there's no real difference.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't like see it like change your life. Like, oh my God, this is so awesome. It's like you get bored with like, I have a lot of cars now. Right. And sometimes I wake up in the morning and I ask myself a question, why do you have so many cars? Like this doesn't like, why? You can't drive them all at the same time. Right. It's a good question. And then you start to feel guilty a little bit, right? Because there's other people out there that wish they had what you had. But then you look back and say, well, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I love. And every car has a different personality. And every car makes me feel differently. And every car reminds me of what I wanted when I was a kid and I looked at the wall on the poster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Today, there was a little kid screaming and kicking. You saw him outside. I told his dad, go sit him in the car and I bet you he'll get quiet. And he'll just smile. And he goes, yeah, I just put him in your car. And he was smiling. I had to rip him out to get him out of the car.
You got a pretty cool car out there.
Right. But you know what that took to get there? That took a lot of shit. Yeah, man. And so your stepdad, Ernie, knows because he watched me grow. He watched me eat shit. He watched people in this town tell me he's cocky, he's arrogant, he's this. And Ernie said, no, he just knows what the frick he wants and he's not going to stop until he gets it. Right. And I just kept going. And I had a lot of haters for a long time. So guys, realize this. As you scale and grow, you're going to get more haters. And one of the biggest things when I got a little bit of acknowledgement on YouTube and people start knowing, like I travel different parts of the country. And like I was in Cancun, I had people walk up to me, you're rich, you're the Glossa guy.
That's crazy.
Right? Can I take a picture with you? Like guy got married. He's nervous. He's in the hallway of the hotel. Me and my wife were walking out. I was wearing the Van Wicke t-shirt. And he goes, you're Rich Light. You told the Law Ferrari story. And he goes, I'm about to get married and I'm so nervous. So I sat there for 10 minutes, talked about a couple of the car stories he wanted to know more about, chilled him out. And then at the end of the night, his family came and found us and wanted to party with me all night long. Right. And I'm in a different country, bro.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that if I didn't take the initiative to go find out how people to know my story or my message, how was I going to know what I have as a brand or as a service? We call that, like, what is your brand personality, right? Everybody focuses on, oh, the logo's not right. It doesn't have the right color button. Like, none of that's important. Everybody thinks that it's got to be perfect. And so what I tell people when you start off, just be consistent and don't worry about being perfect and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And that was what moves the needle. Right. So when my team likes me, because when I produce content and I find problems with it, I said, it's genuine. Put it out.
Yeah.
They're like, you serious? I'm like 100%. I don't need perfection. I need consistency.
Yeah. I do everything in one take. I don't even look at it again. One take, put it out there.
We had some kid last night on Instagram. He's a bodybuilding kid into cars. He shows up to all the car meets. He was so flabbergasted to meet me last night. He came in and he's like, man, you guys have like killed it the last 3 years. And he's got a pretty big following. And he was just like, your marketing is amazing. I said, it's not my marketing. It's my team's marketing. We all contribute to what happens here. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's everybody. You met Austin. You met Johnny. You met Josh, right? These are all different people that contribute. Remember we talked about Garrett being the team?
Yeah.
So it's not me. It's the team. All I do is the visionary.
I want to end on that. And I want to tie it back into our passive income and real estate conversation that we started to have. Is you talk about designing your life. You made it clear, write down what you want, be very clear on it, and then take action. So what is it that you want?
Consistent action.
Consistent action. So what is this vision that you're painting? And tell me, the real estate, you don't need to do it. Why are you doing it? Where is it going? What's the ultimate vision?
I think it's when it comes down to everything in life has got to be a challenge, because if it's not a challenge, it's not worth doing, right? If I hand you $1 million, it's $1 million, but does it mean anything to you? No, it's just money. It's money sitting in front of you. There's no purpose behind that money other than I gave it to you. So do you really think that you're going to value that $1 million I gave you?
That's just like earlier in our conversation. People need purpose more than money.
And so what happens is when you find your true purpose, and I talk about this on the trading platform, and you become the expert. See, you told a story about your podcast and your relationships and how you made deposits into their life. And what happened is in the process of what you're doing, you became an expert, which raised your value in what you do. And the people around you see that, and they want to know how you figured that out. Everything in life, you got to become the expert and be the very best and never settle for less. Always work hard and do more than what you think you can do. And when you feel like not doing it, do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again, because that is the action that moves the needle.
I think that's just about the most perfect place that we could probably end this first interview. Rich, this has been an absolute honor. The amount of nuggets, your just wisdom, your journey through entrepreneurship, what you've been able to share with my audience. I know I'm taking away a lot of big items, and I know that my audience is too. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit down with me. I know you're a busy guy. It's really cool seeing what you've built here, being in your office, walking into your company, just seeing what you've created and peering into the vision that you have ahead. And to everybody out there listening, if you're sitting in your car, looking out the window, thinking about how you're going to apply the lessons of this podcast to your life, go burn the ship.
Don't look back.
Don't look back. Rich, this has been an absolute pleasure. One of my favorite episodes I've recorded. Thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. If you guys are ever in Vegas and you want to come check us out, come to Glossit. You can find us on social media and come take a tour. We'd love to show you guys around.
How can people find you?
They can either go to The Real Rich Light on Instagram, which I don't promote a lot because I like privacy, or they can go to @Glossit, just like it sounds, GLOSIT. And if you guys are looking for an opportunity to get in the car world, go to glossituniversity.com.
To everybody listening out there in the Dynamist world, I hope you gleaned something from this episode. You can take something away, an action item, and if nothing else, go burn the ships. Thank you for listening. We'll catch y'all on the flip side. See you next week.